guys, it's Cassandra here, or Cass, whatever you want to call me, I don't care. We are getting started on building the closet system back up. Last week we tore it all down, and my video for that just went live right now at 11 a.m. Alaska Standard Time. And now I've got a bunch of plywood here, a whole stack of it, and then through the course of the week, after work every day, I was gathering materials. So by the time this Sunday had rolled around, I had everything I needed for the project just to get started, because there's nothing worse than starting a project and then midway through you're running out of materials, so you have to go back to the hardware store like multiple times. So I was trying to cut back on that and work on editing this last week to get that video up. You'll have to bear with me. I'm new to editing, so you know, it can only go up from here. So right now I'm getting ready to measure my plywood, and I will show you what I am. I've got a little diagram, a little measurement. It's right here. I don't know if you can see that, but this is 82 inches tall. We've got like 20 and some change inches here width, and then I have two dressers that are just over 51 inches tall. So what I'm going to do, I don't know if you can see it, but I'm going to make little pocket hole screws on either side, so I can screw these into the studs and make it real secure. And I drew this part right here because I wanted the pocket holes to be hidden as much as possible, so there wasn't a lot of pocket holes showing throughout the whole build. So this is what I'm going to work on now, so let's get started. Along with not to be on any type of really good. I want to make the product, I don't want to make the product last. So I want to not go cheap on wood. Now I'm going to measure this again. I want this to go because I want to make boxes that look hot. So I want to make room so that's boxes for the popular. Okay. I'm going to try to get the box. I'm going to try the box. Two panels off the board right here. And the shelves, that would be nice. We'll see. I do have this Craig jig here. Not really too sure how to use it, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to clamp it on either side so I can make my straight cut. And I think what I'm going to do is cut down the top half first and then cut my two panels side by side. Make sure that when I go through this plywood, I go all the way through and just hit the styrofoam underneath. So I just adjusted my saw blade. Plus, I learned that if I get a 60 tooth blade, it makes for a finer cut. I just learned that this week, so that was pretty cool. And I went to Ace Hardware to find some of my materials, and they were so nice over there. So if you guys haven't been to Ace Hardware, you guys should go. It's definitely worth it. I'm definitely going back. I told them, you guys are so nice. I want to become a rewards member. And they were laughing. So I'm now officially a rewards member to Ace Hardware. I feel like sometimes they are a little bit better than Lowe's and Home Depot and such. They're very helpful over at Ace. gap there, but whoops, didn't realize that. That'll just be the back part of the build, but let me just see if it broke all the way through. Yeah, I did. There we go. Is it the prettiest cut? No. Did it do the trick? Yes. Still trying to figure it all out, people. Don't come for me, okay? I'm still learning. Nothing a little sanding can't fix. And this will be this side will be the back piece that nobody sees. This side will be the side that I'll be able to trim out. Okay, one piece done. Well, cut anyways. I still gotta make pocket holes, but alright. I'm learning, people. I'm learning. Is it the best? No, but nobody said this was gonna be perfect. As long as it's sturdy for my project, that's all I care about. You like my blower so I can get all of the sawdust off? That's pretty funny. You gotta work with what you got, okay? Don't judge me. Alright, there we go. only a half an hour later. But you know what? We're learning as we go, so don't come for me. All right. Well, I had to leave for my project because when I went to go use my Craig hole jig, this little stopper here wasn't going up and down, so I had to go to Lowe's and go grab another one so I can continue on with this project. But it was kind of a nuisance. But I'm going to put 3 pocket holes on the top here. I'm going to put 3 holes on the pockets, 3 pocket holes on the side here, and then I'm going to do some on the bottom too, so I can screw it into all the studs in the wall, and it'll be nice and secure. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so off camera, I put pocket holes in the second piece of wood. Now I'm going to do a quick sanding. Plus I need to sand down some of the sides that I cut and they weren't totally perfect. So that's what we're going to do now on both of those pieces of wood. try 2.5-inch screws so I can nail this into the stud. So I've got the pocket hole here, then I've got pocket holes here so I can hit all of the studs. And I'm hoping that 2.5-inch screws will do the trick and it's not going to be too long. So I guess we're panel successfully installed. Now I have to work on taking out these. Alright, so off camera, I just cut the very corner of, or the very edge of these two dressers, or this one dresser right here, so it can fit nicely up against our wall. And right now I just put a couple shims underneath here to kind of level it as best as I can, and then I'm going to do some pilot holes down here and screw it in so it's nice and tight. So we'll work on that right now. Not going anywhere. I'm pumped. And I'm gonna say she's pretty darn level. guys, I don't even know what day it is right now on this project, but um, off camera, I built this platform in here. I cut it down to size, and I put some bracing in there. So now I'm gonna screw it down with some 3-inch wood screws. I don't know if you can see me, but we are going to walk in here and see if I can't get this new gadget to work. Anyways, let's do that. And then I'm going to start screwing all those panels in that I cut down to size off camera. Put some pocket hole screws in them. If you can see up here, I did pocket hole screws in about 3 or 4 panels. So I'm going to go ahead and get these panels in place, and also the IKEA dresser. So right now let's screw this base on. I'm going to test this last drawer and see if my drawer will slide in and out. Hold on. Oh, perfect. That last screw that I just screwed in was a bit, what is it called? Stripped. It was a bit stripped, so I wanted to make sure that my drawer would fit inside here. I'm now going to do the next panel and screw it into this dresser right here. Gotta change out my bit though to the pocket hole jig bit. And then I did hit a snag. So these I'm going all the way to 82 inches up, and then I need to source a long enough board to go to the very top. So then all of these panels are gonna screw right into the top panel. But I have to source that, so I think this weekend I'm gonna go over to Bernard Builder Supply, and I'm not sure if that's just for the state of Alaska or if it's like an actual chain. But that's where I got all of this lumber right here that I've been using. shelves that are attached. Look at that. So now, if you can see, I put where all my studs are, and this one right here, I'm actually going to, this panel right here, I'm going to actually drill into the studs here so it's extra secure, and then the rest of these panels, all of these panels are going to be screwed into the top panel once I can gather that. Okay, hopefully that's as straight as it can go. Alright, and now I'm going to do my 2-inch pocket screws to secure it. I only have 3 left of these 2-inch ones, or 2.5-inch ones, I'm sorry. So I'm going to secure it to the stud first. Now this is going to be difficult by myself, so we'll see how it goes. About what the back looks like, because I'm going to put some paneling back here in each cubby. So I don't really care what that looks like because I'll be doing a nice background. But yeah, so far this is what I've gotten. I think today's a Wednesday and I was figuring out all the kinks to how to work the new tool that I got. I wanted to get the Craig jig where you can cut plywood and it sits on the end of the plywood and you drag it and cut it. However, I went to 2 different Lowe's and they didn't have it, so I got the Craig AccuCut, which is a lot better than my freehand skills. So I ended up buying that, but I had to figure it out first. And then once I figured it out, it's gone a lot better. But my cuts aren't super straight because that board only sits flat. The little guide sits flat. But when the saw is moving, you know. Now I'm going to put these drawers back in here and keep going with the parts that I can keep going with. it's another day. Yesterday was Wednesday, and I completed my half, other than the 2 top supports, because I'm going to source those longer pieces out. Tonight is Thursday, and I've worked all day, so now I am going to start working on my husband's side of the closet, and prepped some plywood, cut them down to size, put some pocket hole screws in them, and sanded them downstairs. Didn't show you all that. It was just kind of rinse and repeat. So now what I'm going to do is take all of these drawers out. I understand that this is a very narrow space, but we're only getting our clothes in and out of here. We're not spending any time here, so I figured it's not going to really matter how spacious it is, how wide. I just want to make use of all that vertical space as much as I can and double our storage in that aspect. I've been going one step at a time because I am learning as I'm going. But now that I'm familiar and more confident with the circ saw, it's been a lot easier to maneuver and figure out. Although I will say that AccuCut Craig Jig guide is not the best. It definitely has some quirks to it, and it's not all the way straight sometimes. So I do have some wonky cuts, but I'm going to try to make those on the back of the wall, and then nothing a little bit of caulk and filler can't handle. Alright, use my 2-inch screws as much as I can, get them nice and secured in my stud. The dresser right here. My husband got me this gimbal thing, and I'm still trying to figure it all out. So until I can figure it out, you're just on the road with me, guys. Hey guys, this is several days later. You've seen many outfit changes. I haven't been able to work on the closet full time, but every chance that I get, I am trying to work on it more and more. I was avoiding my husband's, I bumped it up right on the bottom, but I have that vent underneath, and so I needed to use tools that I've never used before. So off camera, I used the jigsaw for the first time. So my lines aren't perfectly symmetrical because, you know, that's my first time. But I also wanted to route the edges of the plywood to make an access panel. I also cut a hole on the bottom so I can pick it up and lift it out when we need it. So tonight after work, I was kind of figuring out all the logistics, and I really put that part of the project off for a long time because I was a little intimidated by it. But I'm going to take you in and I am going to show you all of the things that I've accomplished. Okay, so here we go. Hold on. Okay, so here is the base that I made, but I also had to cut that whole piece out, and I did this hole right here. And then I was figuring out the logistics. I bought some pegs just in case this board would fit, but if I put a couple extra 2x4s right here, it supports it just enough, and then we still have access to this panel. And then I also cut out this little piece right here in a 2x4 so that the vent can still air out and vent through the whole closet. And I was really putting that off because I've done a lot of other prep work behind the scenes. But I was so proud of myself last night that I figured it out. It's not perfect, but remember, there's going to be clothes on that bottom shelf anyway, so you're not going to see any of that. It's only there if we have to ever access that panel, that vent, for whatever reason. But I've done a lot of prep work. In the meantime, I've got panels set up ready to go, and all I have to do is screw this base on top, but we're going to lift it up and out because I added those 2 extra supports. So I'm going to screw everything together in just a minute with you guys. And I'm going to see if I can't do it by myself without my husband. However, he's got more strength, arm strength, to really screw these boards together and everything like that, so I might need his help later. So we'll just see how far I can get until I need his brute strength. Have an access panel, people. This is exciting stuff. I am pumped. This whole thing was stressing me out a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. But now I am just so pleased with how this came out, and we can still access that vent if you ever need to. This is a good time right here. Good time. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to connect this panel to the dresser right here. I know it's really a tight squeeze in here, so I'm trying to get all the nice angles for you guys, but it's really hard. But yeah, I'm going to do some pocket holes in this 6-drawer dresser. I'm probably going to do 6, probably, yeah. 2 up top, 2 in the middle, and 2 on the bottom, and then I'm going to go ahead and screw that in. But so far, I'm loving how it's coming out. You know, you just got to work through the kinks as you go. And right now, I'm gonna just put these these drawers back in their respectful homes. I'm not sure if you can see me or not, but well, I'm trying my hardest, people.
All right, future Cassandra here. Let me just say, first off, if you have stuck around to the end of this, I really appreciate you. You guys are solid. Second of all, I started this project back in July, and it was like the beginning of July, and it is now the end of September, and there has been progress made. However, I am a full-time salon owner with my husband, and we work full time, and I take care of a house full time. We've had a couple of vacations between July and now. We've had people coming in to stay with us, and we are hosting. So, my opportunity to work on DIY and everything DIY is very limited. So, I appreciate your guys' patience while I am in the middle of this renovation. Um, Thirdly, I am gaining so many skills on this DIY build. Let me just tell you that. I have literally been on YouTube countless of hours figuring out new tools and different techniques that I can do differently, to make the project smoother. All of that takes time. I know that in the beginning of this video, I showed you the full steps, like figuring out how to cut the plywood down, and I still don't have the proper tool that I want. It's the Craig. I'm not sure what it's called exactly, but it's the tool by Craig that you put your circ saw in, and it lines up on the plywood, and then it goes to the side of the plywood. So when you're cutting, it's just a smooth, solid cut. I still don't have one of those, and I need to get some more plywood for the project. So I am hopefully going to be able to get that in the near future. However, we are in our most busiest time of the year for the salon, so it's going to be a slow moving project from here, but moving nonetheless. So I do appreciate you guys sticking along for the ride. And um, I'm having a lot of fun learning new skills. And I don't want to rush this process because I want to do the very best that I can. You can see behind me that I did get this one completed. So that's this long portion is where our longer clothes are going to be at. And then I have shoe storage right there. So I will show you really quick. I purchased off of Amazon this little shoe guide right here. And I put a set of heels up there. So when I was making the shelves and figuring out what the proper distance away from each other was, I set this up so I can kind of set my guide for where I wanted those shelves to be evenly spaced. And let me tell you, that was a big help. And I'm thankful that I did that. And, you know, when you're working on these projects, you have to think like 7 steps ahead before you even make that first step, because everything rolls into each other. So like like what I did on the little access panel, I was so proud of myself. I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, I figured it out." I never done anything like that before. But like I said, I was thinking ahead because I didn't want to just cover the vent that's on the floor. I want to be able to get to it if we ever need to. Like, it's a good thing to have. And one of my husband's carpenter friends said so many people always enclose it and they never leave access to that. So he really applauded me for doing that and thinking like that. I said, "Oh, well, I'm so glad I did, because now I have your approval," who's an actual skilled carpenter. So, anyways, I just wanted to come in here and close out this portion of the video. I've still got so much more to do, so stick around for me. I'm just trying to edit this video and put it out for you guys. And my editing skills, they're slowly improving, but I'm no editor, and editing takes hours. So, through the chaos of life, I've managed to sit down every day for like 1 or 2 hours and really just kind of hammer in that editing skill. I wouldn't call it a skill at this point right now, but I'm getting there. Anyways, if you have made it this far, I appreciate you guys so much. I look forward to putting these videos out, even if they're not that great. Um, I just want to show the passion that I have for all things DIY. And I want to show people that if I'm learning how to do it, you can definitely learn how to do it. I mean, like I said, countless of hours on YouTube University, and you can get there. Anyways, this is my closeout video. So I will see you in the next one. I'm not sure when that one will come out, but it'll be a doozy when I do have it. Anyways, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you wouldn't mind. It helps the channel. My one goal this year is to make 100 followers. And if I can reach that, then I've made it. Anyways, this is me signing out. So have a good day. And remember, watch for the next video. See you then. Bye.